Hello and welcome to Investing Confidential. Today, as you can see next to me, it's a live stream of one of the great beaches, most famous beaches in the world, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, Copacabana, and Ipanema. And I want to talk about Brazil today because I've gotten some questions. It's Brazil's a disaster right now, and people are asking because something interesting is happening from an asset standpoint. And again, I'm going to show this chart again, but as you can see here, Brazil, again, like China, like a few other markets, is now below the COVID lows in dollars. Okay, this is everything in dollar terms. So this is a disaster. And I used the COVID as a support level or some kind of inflection level uh, at the to try to see where we can test for a bottom. I think all assets eventually will test COVID lows in some way, shape, or form. Yes, I include the U.S. You laugh. Go ahead, keep laughing. Doesn't matter. But Brazil is at the COVID lows, and when something reaches a low like this, a 5-year really dramatic COVID low, which is, I mean, COVID was dramatic for asset prices. You have to address why, right? What's going on in Brazil? Is there an opportunity or is Brazil gone, right? So, first thing, historical perspective, Brazil is never gone. Brazil is always the country. They say Brazil is the country of the future and always will be, right? That's Brazil has these massive swings, and there's a lot of similarity with what's going on in the rest of the world. The rest of the world, okay, countries like in Europe, Germany, France, etc., and now the U.S., they're all going down one by one. The Canadian government's collapsed, UK government's collapsed. Why? Budgets, the fiscal situation. Okay, so here we see the Brazilian budget deficit. It's a disaster. Okay, much lower. The budget deficit's much higher than what the stupid Wall Street bank said it was going to be, because it comes down to, everyone thought, okay, they were going that this Lula government, okay, this corrupt government, okay, this guy Lula is a convicted felon, okay, he was convicted, it was overturned by a corrupt court. That's the bottom line. You can argue with me. Don't send me any comments if you don't agree with it. Like, I don't want to read them, okay, but this guy's corrupt, and they steal. Okay, they've stole the last time they were in power. They stole billions of dollars. Okay, and so they were supposed to do cuts, right? Because Brazil has to get their act together, just like every other country, and they didn't want to cut anything. They wanted to spend, social spending, social spending. Put it in your pocket. Social spending is another word for stealing. Okay, that's the bottom line in Brazil. Okay, so Brazil was supposed to have a huge relief. Interest rates were forecast to come down to 7-8% from 12. Okay, Brazil's interest rates are back up again because this government, okay, refused to cut. Okay, and this is happening all over the world, folks. But Brazil's a special case. Okay, so you've got now there's fear. Okay, as you can see here, people are scared. They're looking at the fiscal situation in Brazil. They don't want to. They don't want to stop spending. By the way, the central bank guy's gone, which was probably the best central banker in the world. He's now gone, and this socialist government has a problem. They want to continue to spend. That's the only way they can get elected, by cheating and spending. So they can't spend anymore. They can't. It's impossible, because fortunately, the rest of the Congress and the Parliament won't allow it. So what's been the result? Okay, the results, as you can see here, is a weakening currency. The currency now is the weakest it's ever been. The real is blown out. Where's it going to go? Who knows? But when currencies blow out like this, they extend farther than you could think. Okay, you're going to have a blowout. Okay, which you're seeing today. Where could the currency go? I don't know. If it hits 7, you're going to get people in dire panic mode. It's probably not going to go to 7, but if it is at 7, that's going to be your trigger. Okay, but right now, Brazil is a disaster. Okay, and let's look at the bonds in Brazil. So here's a 2-year bond in Brazil, 16%. Again, everyone looks at Brazil, what they call the Selic rate, which is the short-term rate. That's over 12%. Okay, you got 2-year rates at 16%. Now here's the 10-year bond, and the 10-year bond, like everything else, is the what everyone looks at around the world. It's a standard. Okay, look at this 10-year bond, the highest yield ever in history, blown out, blown out, and it's because of this. Okay, you look at the government debt as a percentage of GDP. It's now way above 100%. During the last disastrous administration of Lula and Dilma, you could see 2013-14. It was actually pretty under control. Now it's out of control. They can't cut spending. They want to spend like drunken sailors. The gross debt to percent GDP is just blown out, historically ridiculously high, and the current government doesn't want to address it. So when this happens, I'll go back to my original chart that I showed you guys here. You have asset prices, okay, in this case stocks, you see, at the lows of COVID. And the same with the bonds, okay, yields are spiking, bond prices are at the lows. And right now, there is no end in sight to this asset disruption, because on top of all this, you've got the US dollar, okay, ripping to new highs. Because why? And I'm going to address this week. Because the US debt is blown up. The bond vigilantes have taken over. If you don't know that term, I'll teach about that term this week. So the US dollar is destroying every major currency around the world, including the Indian currency. Chinese currency is obviously gone. Brazil's gone. Everyone's gone. UK, Canada, everyone's getting destroyed by the dollar. But this move by Brazil down to the COVID lows has more to do with what's going on in Brazil than out of Brazil. So, is this a buying opportunity? Eventually, yes. We're getting close, for sure. You usually, historically, as someone who's been investing in Brazil for 30 years, I can tell you that when it looks the worst, that's usually time to get in. Would I buy today? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The dollar's still very strong. Very, very strong. And we haven't seen the Trump administration come in and start to do their dealings. Okay, that's what you got to... And as I talked about in early December, which is the last time I did a video, is like COVID was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever the hell it was, the election of the U.S. in November is an inflection point. It's the top of assets in the U.S. The top for sure. Real estate, stocks, bonds, it's the top. And where could you hide? Okay, well, you've been able to hide in gold, you've been able to hide in Bitcoin, certain kind of things. Well, and again, the S&P has gone up, and should you sell the S&P right now? No, not yet. It hasn't broken. Once it breaks, then you sell, but it hasn't broken yet. But going back to Brazil, the president's sick. He's old. Okay, he's probably not fit to be the president of Brazil mentally. It has nothing to do with his being a criminal, but from a mental standpoint, he's not up for the job anymore. I don't know who's running Brazil, quite frankly, but anybody is going to be better than this character, Lula da Silva. So we're getting close, and all I can tell you historically, the way to look at Brazil and when to buy, when not to buy, is the currency. Forget about the stock market. Looking at the stock market every day, it's irrelevant. Watch the currency. The currency is going to make probably one final move, blowout move, and then it'll settle. And that's when stocks will be a buy. But don't look at stocks. Watch the currency. Watch the Selic rate. Follow SCLI. You could follow, and now with ChatGPT and all these, you can follow any of them. Watch the Selic rate. 13. It hits 13. Brazilians today can get 1% a month on their money with no risk in the local currency. So they don't put money in stocks. That's why stocks are very depressed. So the fiscal situation in Brazil has to change. Okay, I don't know if the new central banker is going to be able to. Something's going to happen, because the good thing about Brazil, unlike the U.S., is they can't print money like the U.S. can. They can't hide. The bond market, the currency, are policemen for Brazil, and they are for other countries, but Brazil especially. So historically, again, this is the time when it looks the worst is when you have to start buying. So if you want to buy a little bit. Try to buy companies that are yielding very high yields. Some of them are in ADRs, yield very like 12, 13, 14, 50%. Buy them slowly, buy small, leg in. Because when Brazil moves the opposite way, it moves fast. Very, very fast. But we're not at the bottom yet. Getting close. Watch the BRL. Watch the Selic rate. Watch political news about changes in the government. Okay, any change in the government's going to be positive. Any change, because the government's so bad. But historically, as an investor, you can make more money in Brazil than anywhere else when it moves. Because it moves. So, not live from Rio de Janeiro, but live stream from Rio de Janeiro for all you investors watching Brazil. In the short term and the long term, be very careful out there.